Kovic.
Who said that? Chaz.
I was like, stop. Stop it. Because he was like all serious when he said it.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay, we're live.
Oh,
We are live. Welcome everyone. This is our daily Native Wellness Power Hour. We're so glad to have you join us. I'm just using someone else's computer and everything, so I'm all discombobulated a little bit. But welcome. My name is Jillian Joseph, and I am Ani from Fort Belknap, Montana. And I'm also the executive director of the Native Wellness Institute. I reside here in Oregon with my family. And I would like to welcome you to week 39 of our Native Wellness Power Hours. So way back in the beginning of the year, we were closely watching the pandemic. And in March, when everything shut down, we knew that an already traumatized people would be re-traumatized in this pandemic. So we wanted to contribute and do our part. So we brainstormed and we came up with the Native Wellness Power Hour idea. So it would be consistency, it would be, repetitive every day. We started out going 7 days a week. And then 4 months in, because we've never been in a pandemic, we didn't know how long it would last. We cut down to 5 days a week. So every day we strive to be an anchor in your day, to offer positivity and information and uplifting messaging and programming. So that's what the Native Wellness Power Hours are all about. And we've done workshops and panels and all kinds of great things. And today we have a very special guest, Chenoa Landry. She's actually a staff person of the Native Wellness Institute, and she's helping with our COVID response, doing community health work. And so I'd like to give a big warm welcome to Chenoa Landry. Chenoa, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Pat slachel twangulapu. Shanoat seeds that swallow up shed. Zai ched as gwechwesed a tir slab de bootlid alti slachel. As he speed ched ti hat swalach said. Zal a tir at tir taubuf kwe bali. Gwash at tir taubuf gwal dir sef walach jash. O halin indo ti gwash at tir taubuf gwash gwal o kwebiluf. Twelve ti kadibas ojo ilab atis o hayachi chesh. O latletso to chesh ati pud squotab wal ot alos tub chesh. As hidil altis al chesh as quo ati siaya chesh. Hoi chesha hat liduf. Tis hoyachi chash asista ati duf shagwab yafti ogwal alek yafti ahu holots loch yaftis soch. Kaid aswalach ti e shadchash gwam o I gwasad stab tis o hois. O OH tis hoyachi chas to huaquista 12 dibas. 12 ka at sis taubuf o hoyachi o hachat padabin. Hulgwat tis yayos. Abel chas guahoyachi assista atil to e shachas. Abel assista a quistab a tislachel. O abes chachbid chas tis hoyachi chas a tihats. O abes chachbid chas tistab a quihats. Dai ask h yahout chas tis hoyachi chas altis alatso chas. Gwal ati dibas gwal yahout chas tis hoyachi assista ati to hoyatab atis to e shachas. Gwal ati dibas gwal yahout chas lahout laut quiz o hoyachi gwal o ed gwati hachchas. Us hatchil tis hoichas a qui es hat chas twoti hutch yafti o club yaftis tisali. Um, so good afternoon. Hello everyone. My name is Chenoa and I am Puyallup. I'm very excited to see you all today. I'm very happy about this Power Hour of the Native Wellness Institute. What belongs to the first people of this land is what the means of our strengths are. Our traditions provide healing and wellness. For many of us, we enjoy creating things. This time of pestilence has provided to be an opportunity to be isolated and still inside our homes with our families. Um, and hone in on our traditional arts such as beading, basket weaving, quill work, pottery, and drum making or the drum. Our people have always been resilient and adaptable. The things that we make with our hands are important to us more than just ordinary things. For many, for many of our Native artists, we put our hutch into our work. Um, Whenever we make traditional art forms or contemporary art forms, we put our good thoughts into what we make. Um, we extend our good thoughts and we put our good thoughts into these things. Um, it is especially important to continue with our art forms during this isolation. And there are a lot of people, there are a lot of us who are continuing to do art forms like our ancestral people did. Um, and there are those of us who are continuing with new ways of art forms to express ourselves. I'm also working from home, as you can hear.
It's all good.
um, to do what we love is good for our mind and our body and our soul. So, and what we make is beautiful. Altis Lachel Otatabub Chashtwalti COVID vaccines. So today we're going to talk COVID vaccines and others. So
Awesome.
thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Chenoa. We just put in the notes how you're an avid language speaker. So thank you for modeling that and honoring us with hearing your language and the translation. So thank you very much. And no worries about home. We're all at home, and it's good to hear kids in the background. Oh, awesome. So for those of you tuning in, I call Chenoa our native Dr. Fauci. So she's our community health worker helping us with the COVID work, and especially in the local community. She leads a whole team. We actually have a team of 3 people, and she attends numerous medical updates every week and has been to all kinds of training. She's very clear that she's not a medical doctor, but she's super knowledgeable in COVID. And she's my go-to whenever I have questions, as well as everyone else. So Chenoa, can we just start by, let's start from the beginning. Like, what is COVID? Why do we need to know about it? How do we keep safe and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I want to recognize that I think we're all pretty tired of hearing about it, but it's important that we know about it because um, the more we know, the more we can protect each other. And so the COVID virus is it comes from coronavirus. nine, in 2019, because that's when it was discovered. Um, and it coronaviruses have been around for a long time, but this strain is new. So that's why they call it a novel. Whenever they say novel, novel virus in the epidemiology world, it just means that it's new or newly discovered. And they think that it was a virus that came from um, animals, and so somehow humans it mutated and humans became infected with it. And viruses mutate all the time, so that's one thing to remember, because I think it raises a lot of fear when people are talking about the virus mutating. It's mutating, people say that all the time, but that's what viruses do. Cold viruses do that, HIV viruses do that, and so there's multiple strains, and it's been described, it's not described, categorized, I think is how they say it, as a respiratory virus. But and that means that it comes in through your um, respiratory system. So you breathe it in, or you touch something and then you touch your face or your eyes, and it gets into like the um, mucous membranes or into your system somehow. So somehow the virus has to enter your body, and it affects the lungs. But it also, they have discussed, and by they I mean like scientists and medical experts have considered including it as a um, oh my gosh, I'm losing my train of thought. The um, your circulatory system, um, adding that because it does affect, that's why they're seeing people get blood clots, like young people getting blood clots or having strokes. So strokes are often caused by blood clots in the brain and cutting off the circulation, and so they're seeing really high numbers of people who are normally would never have a stroke, having um, so having strokes and being hospitalized. And so one of the things, a good first aid tip, to know if one of the first things you can find if someone is having a stroke, it's really important to know your general first aid. And one of the things that they tell you to do is to stick your tongue out. And if your tongue is like, it can only go, it should be able to go straight, but if it can only go off in one direction, it's a sign of, it's like one of the first signs of temporary paralysis. And
Mhm.
so if you think you might have been exposed to COVID, or if you think you might have it, or if you think you're having a stroke, or if your mind is like not able to think clearly, not like nervous, not being able to think, because I'm getting tongue tied, but like if you really can't make words come out of your mouth, it's really important to keep an eye on those things, because we're experiencing really high numbers of infection rates, especially within the Native communities all
Mhm.
across. So we're having disproportionately high rates,
Mhm.
and also in other communities of color are experiencing that as
Mhm.
well as disproportionately high rates of serious complications, so hospitalizations.
Mhm.
And I heard one study, um, and this is on the CDC website, and anyone can find it, is indicating that Native people who, when adjusted for age, so especially Native people in their 30s, are about 10 times more likely than non-Hispanic white people to pass away from this virus. So it's very important that we protect ourselves. And the way we can do that is to isolate, which means staying away from people that are outside of your immediate people that you live with. So if you have siblings that you don't live with, we don't know if their bubble is, and like social bubble is larger. And so it's really important that you still maintain a good distance, which is 6 feet or more when you're and wearing a mask. And
Okay.
always wash your hands 20 seconds.
So that was like a really staggering statistic when I heard that. Can you just repeat that again? That the
Mhm. So the study indicates that when adjusted for age, so um, categorizing people by all of their different ages, um, native people in their 30s are 10 times more likely to die of this virus. Um, and so that's why and so I don't know what, so when they announce that someone has passed away from the coronavirus, they don't really go into specifics because of HIPAA laws,
Mhm,
but that's why I was pointing to like some of the symptoms of things of serious complications. So
mhm,
they are saying that shortness of breath is one of the common. It's a common thing that common symptom that people have with COVID.
mhm,
Um, and when people say uh, mild sickness, so some people are experiencing mild symptoms, like shortness of breath is an awful feeling, and some people that I know that are young and healthy and don't have any pre-existing conditions are sick for weeks.
mhm,
Like when we get the flu, um, it feels awful and you've got body aches and headache. And most young, healthy people, as far as I know, feel better within 2 or 3 days. So,
mhm.
and it's like, when you're feeling sick and that's like a long 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, yeah,
And they're seeing people with mild symptoms. So this is body aches, severe body aches, headache, shortness of breath for weeks. And it's
yeah.
really awful. And so my prayers are definitely with those of you out there who are experiencing symptoms and having COVID and have experienced losses in your family. My heart and prayers are with you all.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think that's so important to share because I think some people aren't taking this serious, right? Because they think, they're in a certain age group and it won't be that bad or, whatever. But I think
Yeah.
that statistic is like so staggering for all young people to hear, right?
Hmm.
Um, and definitely, the Native Wellness Institute has experienced our own loss, so and I don't know, what Chenoa and I were talking the other day about our social media timelines just being filled with COVID, COVID, people having COVID, people passing of COVID. And definitely our hearts go and condolences go out to all the families who have lost a loved one. So Chenoa, you mentioned ways to stay safe. And if anybody's watching the news, of course, we had a historic day yesterday in our country, about the vaccine, and the vaccine has made its way to Indian country too. So lots of tribal communities are getting the vaccine, yesterday and throughout the next coming days and weeks and months, actually. So can you just share a little bit about vaccines, like what's happening, the importance of them, and how people can learn more?
Hmm. So one of your best resources is going to be to check the updates on this the CDC website. I'm sorry. Um, I don't know how loud it is on everyone else's
It's not
screen,
that
but I'm
bad.
sure you behind me. It's like, bro, we are in this together.
Okay,
Um,
so cdc.gov.
yeah. And one of the cool things about vaccine research is that they're very transparent, meaning they're really clear with their process. And so, one of the good things to know about vaccine research, especially with this vaccine, is that they go through. It's like I want to say 6 or 7 step process, and the first 3 steps is just like kind of research and discovery and trying to figure out what could work. And so one of the ways that this vaccine has been fast tracked is by getting a lot of government funding. So we wouldn't have a lot of the things that we presently have just in everyday life without government funding. And so that is one of the reasons why the vaccine has been able to um, it's historically been like government funding and private like companies
Mm-hmm.
funding things that really allow us to get that fast research or
Yeah.
resources. So that's one important thing to note is that these biotech companies are getting funding because nobody is benefiting from this virus. Like, I know that there's like a lot of discussion about there's a lot of fear, and for the most part everyone wants to see, like, the whole planet wants to see the end of this, and we
Yes.
want to be able to move on. And so including pharmaceutical companies. And after those first three steps, um, those are all like not with human subjects. um, Excuse me, the second part might be, the third step might be human. Anyway, when they move into like human subjects, um, though there's three phases of that part, and all of those people understand, they have written consent, and they understand that they are part of a trial. They understand, and they will be followed. So um nobody's going to like put a give you a shot and tell you it's a flu shot and then it's a COVID vaccine. That is, one, it's unethical, it's illegal, and pharmaceutical companies, they want to gain the public trust, and so they're not doing, they're not having shady practices. So those are important things I feel like to talk about, because we do hear a lot of discussion about not wanting to be experimented on. And right now Pfizer has received um, emergency approval, which means that they know that it's safe and effective in people who are ages 16 and older. So it's not approved for use in children yet. Um, and then Moderna is another pharmaceutical company, which they are probably going to be getting FDA emergency approval this week. Within, it's like we're within days, which will open up um, thousands of more or millions more doses to people in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Nice.
yeah, I don't know if that answered the question. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, no, that was really good. Um, so there's you mentioned like the mistrust that's out there, and certainly we're hearing that from people. No way am I going to take a vaccine, I'm not going to be the guinea pig, all these kinds of comments and things. So what do you tell people when you hear that, like, no way, I'm not going to take that vaccine?
Mhm.
What's a good response?
Well, I think I want to acknowledge that that's valid. I think we have a very long and difficult history with our relatives being experimented on, especially in people. And my grandma had TB, and she had. I mean, I grew up hearing all the stories of like they did experiment on her. These were in the days when they didn't have easily access to antibiotics, and if they did have antibiotics, they weren't being used for Native people. And she, as a matter of fact, when she was in her 80s and had an x-ray, the x-ray technician was like, I don't know how you're breathing with your lungs all scarred up, because they used to like get these huge needle injections and deflate her lungs and all of that. And so those stories resonate with a lot of us, and we have women who were forcefully and unknowingly sterilized up until, I mean, we're not talking about centuries ago. This is within our lifetimes. We know women that this has happened to. And so those concerns are absolutely valid. And I understand why people have that mistrust. But I also want to say that this vaccine is it has one, it's been well funded, and so that's why it's been fast tracked. They want to see the end of this virus, not the end of people. And one of the reasons why some tribes are gaining access to this is, one, they have cold storage. Two, they recognize that we have disproportionate rates. People in the public health circles have been advocating for us to be able to have access to these vaccines, because right now I think they said oh gosh, I forgot if it was 2 or 4 million, enough to dose like 2 or 4 million people in the US. I mean,
Mhm.
that's like a fraction of the people. And the first doses are going to go to medical workers who are working on the front lines with people who have been diagnosed with COVID. And then they are looking at BIPOC communities, that's Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, um, um, in the top priorities. So each state is going to be different with their access.
Yeah.
Um,
I
um,
I talked to someone yesterday that's in a community that has been hit very hard with COVID, and they were they were crying because they were so happy that they got the vaccine. That
mhm,
finally, they put themselves at risk like every minute of every day, and they were literally in tears because they were so happy that their community got the vaccine to distribute.
mhm.
So I thought that was really good. We
Yeah.
have a message. It's from Shalea actually, and she says they called her grandma first thing yesterday morning asking her if she wanted to be the first to get the vaccine, and she
Mm,
said no, only because she was uncertain of the effects. So
okay.
can you talk a little bit about that? Hi, May.
Yeah. Because he wants to say hello. He's my designer, by the way. He said I should just wear one earring. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Um, so that is a really good point. Um, I believe the latest statistics have said that like 7 or 8% of people who receive the vaccine will experience some kind of side effect, which is a pretty high number when you consider, millions of people are going to be getting it. So there's a couple of things. One is this is not a live virus. And so what the virus is, and forgive me if anyone is an epidemiologist here and I use the wrong words, but it's an mRNA spike protein. So it's not the virus that they're using for the vaccine. Um, and when a person experiences side effects from the vaccine, what that is your body's immune system fighting it. So it's kind of like the headaches and headaches, extreme fatigue, like enough to need to take a day off of work, and body aches are some of the most common symptoms that people are having from the vaccine. And that means that your body's responding. That what that means is that it's turning on your immune system. Those are ways that our body, like when we get a fever, which some people will get a fever also, that was another side effect. The fever is like burning off the things in your body. When you sterilize something, you want to burn off all of the things. So that's what your body is trying to do. So the side effects, some scientists are saying that's almost a good thing because it means that it's working. Another thing with this virus is that you need to have both doses. So if you get the Pfizer or the Moderna, they're 2 doses. And in order to have the full 95% efficacy, I think Moderna is like 94 something percent. Um, you need to have 2 shots, and I believe they're 3 or 4 weeks apart. And
Mhm,
so if you only get the first one, it's only like 50 some percent
mhm,
effective.
mhm.
And I understand why people have a fear, but it's also, if you think about the side effects of having a vaccine versus actually being infected with COVID and having serious complications and ending up in the hospital, or you
Or
know
passing it to someone else who might
giving.
end up in the
Mhm,
hospital or something. Yeah,
mhm,
definitely. So, and then there's people that have no side effects, right? When they take the
mhm,
vaccine, they have zero side effects. And
mhm,
Chenoa facilitates a weekly, we call them COVID conversations, just to help, educate people. And we had a guest speaker on one day. We'll have to get him on a power hour, but he's a native nurse that was involved in the clinical trials that received it, and his now he knows his wasn't the placebo. And he talked about, he had a headache or something like that, but otherwise, he was fine, and now he's vaccinated. I
mhm,
think also, we have, you spoke to, of course, the mistrust issues, and yes, those are there. And then we also have what I would call like the flip side of that. So for example, 28 years ago when I was pregnant with my first child, Shailene, I took my grandma to go visit her sister. She wanted to go visiting for the day. And so while they were visiting, they were asking me, how I was feeling, my first pregnancy and all this kind of stuff. And I was asking them all kinds of questions, teach me some lullabies and, things like that. We had a really fun day. Well, one of the things they told me that I didn't even bring up, but because of their experiences, they both had a lot of children, but we talked about vaccines, right? And they encouraged me to vaccinate my children, and they did go all the way back. And this is when I heard this story for the first time about how the smallpox had impacted our tribe. And they made the example they gave was, do you think if our people knew how the smallpox would impact us, if they would have took the vaccine to prevent all of these deaths, right? And they were basically saying, yes, like our people would have done that. And I kind of feel that way with COVID, right? I feel the same with COVID. Like we know how it has impacted our communities in very disproportionate ways, right? In part because of existing health conditions, which in part is a lasting impact of, racism and oppression and, the disparities and all of that. And so that's in part why we wanted to do the Power Hour today as well, is just to get information out there and encourage people to get it. So we have Trevino. Hey, Trevino, thanks for tuning in. He says, I'm relatively healthy. I'll get the COVID-19 vaccine because there are not many Lakota, and I don't want to die from something preventable.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying that, Trevino. And I think about that too, about how many of us would still have relatives alive. I mean, this is smallpox and other diseases like decimated our number. Like more people died of disease than wars,
Yes.
from what I've learned. And I often think about like how at the end of this, when we're through this and 10 years down the line, how did we react during this difficult time? And I want to be able to look back and say I helped. I stayed away. I stayed healthy for my kids. I stayed healthy for my parents. I stayed healthy for my elder relatives. um and and this is just a short time. Like, I
Mhm.
know a year seems like a long time. We're coming up on a year of living with this virus. In China, they're already in a year in. And like, this is just like one chapter in our life, and I
Mhm.
feel like let's move on to the next chapter in a good way. And I mean, most of us aren't even going to have an opportunity to take the vaccine until at least April. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so,
I was gonna, oh, go ahead.
oh no, it's just good to start thinking about it now, that if you have an opportunity to get it, like, I strongly encourage, like, if I had access to it, I would take it.
Yes.
um because I want to be able to hug my elders, and I want to live. I have I'm I want to have it. I want to be healthy, and I don't want to. And the thing with the vaccines, I have to say this, is that it's not a magic bullet, and it's not or a magic shot, however you want to say it, because first of all, you have to have the 2 doses,
Mhm.
and it doesn't take full efficacy until I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks after your second dose.
Mhm.
And so, and the research is early in terms of, okay, it is proven to be safe, it's proven to be effective. What they don't know is if you can still get infected with it and have no symptoms and pass it on to someone else. And so
Mhm.
that is why we have to continue to social distance and wear our mask and stay away from people.
Yes, I think that's a good point, because yesterday too, you heard people saying, oh yeah, the pandemic's over, the vaccine's here, right? Like
Mhm.
yesterday was going to solve everything, and it's not, right? Because there's different waves of people that are going to get it first, right? And then who's going to get it second, who's going to get it third. There, Chenoa actually shared this a New York Times article with me, and there was a link in there to click about where you would be in line to get the vaccine, right? And so that was pretty interesting. So
Mhm.
I think the other thing that will help is, our healthcare providers are getting it first. And so I think people
Mhm.
are saying, I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to be the guinea pig. I don't, what I'm hearing from healthcare providers is they don't feel like guinea pigs because everything is based in science. Everything has
Yeah.
went through the clinical trials. Like
Yeah.
it's safe. That's why they're taking it, right? It's
Yeah.
just like other vaccines that we get when we're from the time that we're born to 10 years old, right? All of those vaccines that we get. So we won't get things like
Mhm.
the measles and all of that kind of stuff. So this is going to be like another vaccine, right?
Right. And
So
it's based on sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it is based on sound science. Part of
mhm,
the reason why it was fast tracked, there was a couple of things that made it faster. One is they used existing research
mhm,
as a starting point. And the other thing was they started manufacturing before it was approved because they knew that if it were to be approved, they didn't want to have to wait for the manufacturing. So they overlapped some of those things. So when they're talking about fast tracking, they're not cutting corners. They expanded their trial size. So normally they would like have 15,000 people and then 40,000 people and then expand. And what they did was they opened it up to 44,000 people who they were testing for efficacy, not safety, because by then it had been proven safe. And
mhm,
like you had mentioned with our friend who got the vaccine, he recently announced that he got the he has the antibodies. The
mhm. Nice,
vaccine worked for his body. So
nice.
um, yeah, blessings and prayers up.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I think the other thing for people to remember is that if you still have questions or you're still, yeah, I'm not sure, like you still have time to do your own research, right? You still have time to read, reputable articles like from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Mhm.
Maybe even seek out people that have got it, and maybe that could even be a follow-up power hour. Is we can have people on that have received the vaccine and they can share their experience, right? Because I think, just like the stats that you shared at the beginning of the program, and I'm sure by now everyone or most everyone probably knows someone that either has had it or currently has it, or sadly that has even passed from it, right? Because that's how impacted our communities are. So we have some time to educate ourselves further about the vaccines. So what other kind of messaging or information would you like to share with our listeners that are tuning in today, Chenoa?
Well, I did want to share something that one of my fellow tribal members posted, and it was just a quick statement, but I thought it was really profound actually about when you he was talking about posting when you post things that are like anti-vax, think of the disrespect that feels to people who have lost loved ones.
Mhm,
And that really hit home to me because I was thinking that is so that is so true. We know so many people that like, what if we had had this vaccine available, and um would that change things? And yes, there may be side effects, but they're really very mild compared to actually getting sick. I mean, like I said, I've known people who are young and healthy and had no pre-existing conditions, and they're like, this is not the flu. And I also know people who have been asymptomatic, and this is why it's dangerous, because up to I keep hearing different numbers. The most consistent number I'm hearing is 45%. Up to 45% of people who have COVID have no symptoms and are spreading it.
mhm,
And that to me is it's really unacceptable. It's scary.
mhm,
And I also um, hear a lot of people talking about their offended or their feelings are hurt because they can't gather, or they say things like, oh, so and so thinks I have it, and and blah blah blah, that kind of talk. And I understand that comes from a place of hurt and trauma, but I also want to say that, like, we all should be treating each other as if we had it, because of that high number of people who are asymptomatic. And it's not a reflection of anyone's health or sanitation or um, cleanliness. Like, it
Mm.
has nothing to do with, and I know there's kind of like a lot of resonating feelings of hurt, and because some of us, especially in like my parents' generation, were called, I mean, even some of us in our generation, called awful names, and based on our cleanliness,
Mhm.
and they're words that I don't even bother to repeat but it has nothing to do with that. It's really like nobody asks to get it, nobody asks to get sick, nobody likes being sick. And there's some so my tribe has our name literally translates to the generous people. And some people say it's because of our giveaways and things like that, but I always believe that it's also about generosity of kindness, and
Mhm.
extending that kindness to others, and compassion. And that's why it's so important to have compassion for each other who are feeling sick or having it, because I feel like with that stigmatizing, it's adding to the problem, because then people start feeling shame that they have it or they did something wrong. And sometimes people will take riskier behaviors because we're exhausted. I
Yeah,
don't think anyone was fully prepared to have this marathon of staying indoors.
yeah, yeah. One of the things that has helped me is I look for the blessings of COVID, and when I see a blessing of COVID, I say it like, "Oh, that's a blessing of COVID," you know. And this
Mhm.
is coming from someone who, you know, um, we lost a board member. Our dear beloved elder, you know, passed away from COVID. And
Mhm.
given that, like, I can still look for the blessings of it, you know. And so we have somebody, Shailene, actually on here says, we are seeing the impact the holidays have had on COVID numbers, right? Like we can look even back to, well, all the holidays, right? But our
Mhm.
recent holiday of the Thanksgiving holiday, what advice would you give since we have Christmas and New Year's Eve coming up,
Yeah.
as well as the winter solstice and, you know,
Yeah.
the ceremonials that happen and things like that throughout the winter? So what advice do you have?
Mhm. Um, yeah. I
Besides, stay home.
stay home. Well, there's this, a lot of the really cool things, COVID blessings, I guess, is that links like Zoom are, I don't know if they're going to do it again for the winter holidays. I know some people celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or solstice, and I don't know how long Zoom is going to do this, but they were extending the time links so that you could have a Zoom link open. Um, I kept seeing this one phrase coming up on the social medias about, I would rather have a Zoom link and a social distance Thanksgiving, so I don't have a hospital Christmas. And it's the same. I really just want our families to be safe and in our circle. So some people will have like a social bubble where they're okay being unmasked, and if you do that, um, it's so important that you're doing it safely, and that it's kind of like, um, I don't know, monogamous relationships. You want to make sure that that social bubble is staying with your social bubble, and that's it, and it's not going further, because then one person goes and they have lunch with another group of friends, or they have dinner with another relative. And when they say stay with your families, um, I don't know if they don't know like native families, because we have like huge families, and so it's important that you're staying with your household family, because um, I've seen people who, and it doesn't mean that just because somebody got it doesn't mean that they were being unsafe. And so they're seeing really high numbers of people in their 20s and 30s who are getting testing positive. And it's not necessary, and people are always like, oh, because they're always going to bars or blah blah blah. And I don't want that message to be shared, because I want people to understand that a lot of those people are getting it from work, because that is that those people in their 20s and 30s are our workforce. They're working in our grocery stores, they're
Mhm.
packing food, they're getting us all of our basic needs,
Mhm.
they're delivering food. And so every time they're around more people, even little bit by little bit, and if other people aren't wearing their mask, then they're being exposed all the time to the virus. And so that's why
Yeah,
those essential workers are like third on the list of recommendations from the federal government to be able to receive the vaccine. And
yeah,
so the federal guidelines are just that, they're just guidelines. So each state is going to vary by how they're administering it. And I have a lot of concerns about that, because I know there are a lot of states that are very conservative and don't put the interests of tribes first a lot.
yeah, yeah,
and and
yeah,
so if you're from a tribal community, I highly recommend, advocating and reaching out to your state legislators and making sure that you are um, having access. And even
yeah,
if you can't get people to get it, at least have the access.
yeah. Awesome, awesome. So we still need to stay home, right? We
Yeah.
we still need to stay home. It's the same kind of protocols that we've been living with. If you do have to go out, of course, mask up, use your hand sanitizer, all of that. They're saying in here, yeah, no teepee creeping. Leanne says, LOL. Yes, stay in your bubble and only one bubble.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm seeing as well on social media people with COVID that are now saying, I should have just stayed home, right? Like, I
Mhm.
should have just stayed home. Like, we know, like, they're basically saying, I knew not to do this, but I did it anyway. And then now I have COVID, right?
Yeah.
And then you know very well because of your community health worker work, how it impacts families, right?
Mhm.
Someone goes to work and they get it, and then they come home and they're in an intergenerational home, right? And then, some are at higher risk than others, and it just causes so much stress and worry, and that people are already experiencing because of the pandemic fatigue is real, right? Zoom fatigue is real, political fatigue is real, like all of this stuff. So some final thoughts. What are some suggestions for self-care for people? Like, what can we do to just help us garner the strength to just make it through this?
Yeah, self-care is so important right now. And they did it. The New York Times has a really good is a really good resource for looking at everything coronavirus related. They're watching it really closely. And there was an article, they did a research um, on with like 700 epidemiologists, and what
Mm.
are some activities that they do that they feel are safe. And one of the top things was like going for a walk outdoors. um I think we have like a thing in our family, like you have to get fresh air in your lungs all the time. And because this is a respiratory disease, like you do want to have fresh air in your lungs, getting enough sleep. um One of the reasons why self-care is also so important is that the I don't know. I don't even know if you guys can hear me. That's so
We can. It's fun.
okay. Because when you're stressed, your immune system, and this is scientifically proven that your immune system is weaker when you're stressed. And this is a very stressful time. And I also want to recognize that our rates of family abuse is perhaps not being recognized and not being um,
Like
addressed.
monitored, maybe.
Yeah, and I feel like it's really important that you socially distance check on your relatives who have a family, have a history of family abuse. Check on people and make sure that children are safe. Make sure that spouses and partners are safe. Making not endangering anyone.
Mhm.
And making sure you have resources for like online and call resources for like the National Suicide Hotline is an important resource, and we can post that up here. And because we're seeing higher rates of people feeling the impact of that. So self-care is going to be really, really important. So whatever it is, whether even if it's just like, stepping outside, deep breathing, putting your feet in the ground and like, uh-oh, here he comes. Or laughing with your kids, or
Yes, playing
eating,
with your kids,
or eating
chasing your
something
chasing
good,
your kids around.
kids around, chase your uh chase your little ones that you live with around. Okay, here we go. We're just gonna move this. Here you go. I was using his toy box as
Oh,
office space, so
now he wants it back.
now he wants it back.
That's
Um, but
awesome.
yeah, I feel like because, and also making sure you're getting all of your vitamins. So whether it's supplements or eating really well, you want to get your vitamin D and vitamin C, and really um, take care of your body, because that's going to keep you stronger. And remember, like, I keep thinking of it as like, it seems really far away. It seems really far away, but we've already been this far,
Yeah.
and week by week. And
Yeah. I know I've been saying, well, we're at least halfway through it, like, you know, and I think part of self-care is looking for the blessings,
yeah,
right? We could like challenge everyone, look for this for the next day or the next week, like look for the blessings of COVID, right? Our time at home, we can, people have been decluttering and
mhm,
organizing and, things like that. People have been cooking more and trying new things, right? People have been doing things that they normally don't have time to do, right? So like those become all blessings of COVID, right? I know you've been focusing on even learning your language. I've been afforded the time to do that as well, attend language classes and things like
mhm.
that. So, and I think laughter, people are commenting, it's good to hear. I haven't heard a little kid laugh for so long. That's good to hear, and I think laughter is so important. Just getting in a good laugh. And I think, for me, I attended my cousin's funeral via Zoom,
Mm.
right? Like I did a family gathering via Zoom. Like we all played bingo together. We had people from like 3 or 4 different time zones, and
Yeah.
we played family game night on
Mhm.
Zoom. So
Yeah.
there's things, so we have opportunities to be creative as well, right?
Sure.
For our self-care and to make things work. Shalay is commenting again on doing things to be mentally strong as well, right?
Yeah.
So if you're tuning in today and you're feeling a little bit down and out or defeated or deflated, we can reach out. Sometimes it's hard for us to reach out for help, but we can reach out as well, right? To
Yeah.
family members and friends, or there's tons of stuff online, like literally tons of stuff that we can cruise around and find something that we can, take a healthy risk and tune into.
Yeah.
So, I want to thank, we're going to kind of wrap it up a little bit early because I have another training to get to.
Yeah.
This is a crazy busy day today, crazy busy time. But we want to thank you, Chenoa. I just love that you stay on top of everything. And I love that you love and care for our people so much. So we'll have you on again. And we want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Please share this with your family and friends on your social media platforms. All of the power hours are also saved on the Native Wellness Institute's YouTube channel. So you can go, I always tell people, if you run out of things to binge watch on Netflix, you can binge on Power Hours. We
Yes.
have over 220 Power Hours on all kinds of stuff. So you can work on your own personal growth and healing while you're in quarantine. That's another blessing of the pandemic. Um, we also have these shirts. Mine happens to say Shift Happens today. That's shift with an F, SHIFT. Shift happens. And we have a bunch of other shirts. Healing is a verb, healing people heal people. grandma up. Anyway, they're on our website, nativewellness.com. They're $25 plus shipping, and they go to help fund our power hours, which we offer every day at noon Pacific time for free. So please remember to keep tuning in. You can go back and see the different topics if you want to brush up on anything. But we're grateful for all of you tuning in today. And thanks again, Chenoa. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. We will be back tomorrow and the next couple of days. We have a two-part series starting tomorrow looking at Two-Spirit and LGBTQ plus issues that impact Indian country will be tomorrow and Thursday with Theta and Theta New Breast and Asa Wright. So please tune in for that. And then Friday and then next week we start in all again our week 40 of the Power Hours. So since March 21st, we have been coming live to you every day. So all right, we'll see you all later.
So love the BT chat. Thank you.